Welcome into another edition of Talkin Ducks. Oregon rolls on the road against Colorado, setting up a big-time matchup against Washington at home. Also, college football playoff rankings, Oregon moving up, courtesy some help with some teams losing above them. And then as the Ducks get set for this stretch run of the season, can they still find a way to get to the college football playoff, or is it already a foregone conclusion? Let's go ahead and get to our opening drive, brought to you by Les Schwab Tire Centers, where they've been doing the right thing since 1952. So let me get this straight. Newman can't join us. Joey's out saving the world somewhere. I call you Aaron Fentress, and you're rolling out of bed at like 10:30 a.m. on the road and who knows where, following the team around.
I'm in Charlotte with the Blazers, man. Come on.
Call.
What?
I said, thank you for getting out of bed and at least taking my call.
Well, last time you snuck up with George Reister. You're not gonna. It's just really just me.
It is just you and I.
It's just me for a whole hour. I get a whole hour.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to this matchup. Oregon, Colorado. A lot of style points. They didn't get to 50 like you were hoping for, Aaron, but this is exactly the type of performance you were looking for from an Oregon team that is now knocking on the door of the college football playoff.
Did Ty Thompson throw a touchdown? No. Therefore, it was a failure. They couldn't get the 50 against sorry Colorado. Come on. No, I'm kidding. Look, all you can do in a game like this is just make easy work of the other team, look dominant for the entire game, which they did. And it was really weird at times because I almost felt like they were playing 7-on-7 in the passing game. No pressure at all. Guys just wide open. I mean, did Colorado even practice against Oregon schemes? I don't even know based on that game. And then, of course, the rushing attack was dominant. So it was pretty easy for the offense. I would have liked to see them score more points. But, hey, I'm just nitpicking there. They were as dominant as you could expect them to be in a situation like that against a completely inferior team.
And I think that's exactly what you want to see. And we saw a few wrinkles. You saw an offensive lineman catch a touchdown. We saw Bo Nix catch a touchdown pass. And then, of course, Noah Sewell run it in for a touchdown for himself. And you do that, Aaron, because why? It feels like with a very difficult schedule coming up right behind you here soon, you're doing that. Are you making sure other teams have more to prepare for as they get set for you?
Well, in a game like that, you don't need trickeration, right? You don't need to, hey, we're going to throw it back to our quarterback for a touchdown because we have to manufacture points. So to me, it seems like you only do it just to mess with the rest of the teams on your schedule because now they're going to have to spend at least a little time telling their guys, hey, watch out for this, even though Oregon may never try it again. And then as for the Sewell thing, I love that. Are you kidding me? Did you see how violently he attacked that line of scrimmage? Give that man goal line carries. He can be the next Cyrus Habibi-Likio in that role. I would run with that. Inside the three, Sewell, get in there and take care of business. But no, I like the idea. I call it subtle genius. Like it's just a little thing. It's not. You didn't need those things to win this game, but you throw it out there. You may use it again, you may not, but you give other teams something to think about.
All right, well, let's get to some excellence on the football field presented by Ferguson-Wellman. Ferguson-Wellman taking a disciplined approach to investing in, how about Christian Gonzalez? Normally we look at Bo Nix for this excellence, but really Christian Gonzalez, he gets Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week, lines up against his former team, gets a huge interception, and just his dominance and what we've seen this year, Aaron, many people have him as a top 5 cornerback in the NFL draft, and you can look at the impact of Bo Nix as a transfer, absolutely huge, but on the defensive side, this was a big pickup for the Ducks in the offseason, and you're really starting to see Gonzalez come into his own.
Oregon's transfer game was money. It may be the greatest transfer offseason off the top of my head that I can think of when you figure in Nix, the running backs, and Gonzalez. And they needed a corner. They needed help in the secondary because they lost most of the secondary to the NFL. And to go out and get a guy who's going to be maybe a first or second round draft pick, it's usually kind of unusual. And for him to go home and do what he did, like, is that like not perfect?
Did him dirty too.
Exactly.
Did him dirty.
There's a key moment when he got the second pick and he got run out of bounds on the Oregon sideline, and one of the Colorado players like gave him a push in the head or whatever. And at first I was like, oh, that's probably one of his boys. So good for him to go back home and have a good day.
All right, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at Bo Nix and also the college football playoff. Those recent rankings came out. Where does Oregon find themselves and how do they get in? We'll let you know when we come back on Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for our legendary moment, brought to you by Abby's Legendary Pizza. And How about Bo Nix rolling out a little trickery? The quarterback with the reception, and unlike Joey Harrington, stays on his feet. Now, the stakes weren't as high as Joey's catch, but pretty remarkable for Bo Nix, and he joins elite company, just the third Oregon quarterback to ever throw, catch, and run for a touchdown in a game, joining Marcus Mariota and Joey Harrington for doing that. And Aaron is really interested how well Bo Nix has been playing. We had a chance to catch up with him earlier this week and ask him his thoughts on how well he's been playing lately.
I think our offense is one of the best in the country. I think when you look at what we're doing offensively, everybody touches the ball most. I mean, there's countless amount of people that have a touchdown. Our O-line's probably the best in the country. Coach Dillingham's probably calling it as good as anybody in the country. I think he's just in a very good rhythm, very smart, puts us in great situations. So I think you take me out of the equation, our offense as a whole. I mean, we're so dynamic and guys are doing so many different things. You can't really just say it's me, because you got guys running touchdowns, you got guys catching touchdowns. I literally think my job is kind of the easiest, just because I get to get those guys the ball and they do the work for me. And so I'm fortunate to be on an explosive offense like this.
You've literally got like national writers writing like apology columns to you, though, like saying they were wrong about you. Like that doesn't do anything.
Well, you know, this is the thing about college football. Sometimes guys, obviously, you don't really get to see the what they can do until a little later. Some guys start a little sooner, some guys go a little later, but I think that that's a tough question, because I am in such a good position to where it's hard to, it's hard to kind of say that, like, I don't know. It's tough. That's tough. I don't really want to comment a whole lot about it, because that's how you get in trouble.
All right, Aaron. Well, Bo Nix is making a lot of sports writers, like yourself, not like yourself, maybe
a little bit like myself, a little bit.
Really eat some crow this year. You've got people writing apology articles about Bo Nix, and it goes to show you a change of scenery. And like you said, guys develop later. And I think to me, this speaks a lot about his maturity and his resolve for him to play this well late in his career after all the adversity he kind of dealt with and this big transfer.
Absolutely. Look, coming in, I think I've said this on the show and other places, you wonder, what is he just what he is that we saw at Auburn, which was a very good athlete, not necessarily a great quarterback. And then you also had to wonder, could he blossom in a different conference, different setting, being reunited with Dillingham? And it's all the above right there. And the second half of what I just said, like, he has come into his own, and it's almost like, you wonder, what happened at Auburn? Well, maybe he just needed those years. Sometimes you need time. And just because they play you as a freshman and you're a five-star kid doesn't mean you have to have instant success. As we've talked on this show, Joey Harrington, as you mentioned, redshirted, didn't play until his redshirt junior year. Dennis Dixon struggled until his senior year. Kellen Clemens was very redshirted and then was very streaky until his junior year. His best year by far was his senior year. So this is not unprecedented for these types of things to happen. But it's just that we have so much hype around recruiting that if you don't succeed right away, you're labeled a bust. But good for Bo Nix, because he has played his way into a cast-off from being a cast-off to being a draft pick. I don't know where he's going to go, but when I watch him, I can't, I don't see obvious flaws. I need to reach out to some of my scout boys and say, what am I missing with this kid? Why can't he be a first, second, or third round pick? Because what doesn't he do? And I've gushed over his long ball, his deep ball. I would propose to his deep ball if I were single. When he drops back and he gets that little tilt and he's gonna go deep, I'm like, ooh, here comes a deep ball. It's really NFL-esque. So good for Bo Nix. It's a great story, no doubt.
Yeah, the real question is if the deep ball would say yes to you for that proposal.
Probably not.
All right, let's get to some talking numbers here. College football playoff rankings come out. Oregon finds themselves at 6. It goes Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, and then one-loss Tennessee above the Ducks. USC sitting there at 8. And Aaron, what do you make about this? Because for Oregon, there's some carnage ahead of them with the fact that Alabama and Clemson lost last week. Ohio State and Michigan still have to play each other, and odds are Tennessee won't play in their conference title game. So, can a one-loss Oregon that runs the table, considering those situations, make it in the college football playoff?
Well, I'm just glad Newman's not here right now to try to rub things in a little bit since we have this $100 bet. But what I said last week is you need 3 teams of those 6 ahead of them, of 6 of the 7 ahead of them, to fall off dramatically. And Bama's got the second loss, so Oregon can surpass them. They already have, obviously. And then Clemson, I guess it's just, they're just a mess. Because to me, I still think, well, they can still win the conference. If they win the conference, why can't they still be viable? But they're not having a very good season regardless. They don't sort of pass the eye test really. So they've fallen off. So now you're looking at it and it's like, well, there's a great opportunity to get in there because you see 4 teams ahead of them. 2 of the pairs are in the same conferences. So only one can win the championship of that conference. So does Oregon get in ahead of a 1-loss team that doesn't maybe even go to their conference championship game? Because Tennessee can't go, and Michigan and Ohio State both can't go to their conference championship game. And I still think there's going to be some decisions to be made, and they need a little help because if I'm the playoff committee, regardless of whether you win your conference, the SEC is so much better than the Pac-12 that for my money, if I have Tennessee with 1 loss and they beat Bama and that 1 loss was to Georgia and it was a better loss than Oregon's loss to Georgia, do I pick Tennessee? I think it's very possible that could happen. But at the same time, if Oregon, which is now about to play the toughest part of its schedule, if they can clear these next 4 games, counting a Pac-12 win over a USC, that's going to look really, really sexy up on the board there for the committee. So they're not out of the woods yet. I still think they need some help, but Newman's getting closer and closer to cashing in on our bet.
Yeah, I really feel like, especially if TCU loses, they have the most difficult remaining schedule in the country, essentially, having to go to Texas and Iowa State and everything. There's a chance Oregon not just only gets in, they get a 3 seed. And I think that's exactly what you're looking for Oregon is you want to delay that rematch against Georgia. I mean, there's some poetic justice there if it's the final game of the season. But either way, there could be a situation where the committee is looking at a rematch of either Oregon-Georgia or Tennessee-Georgia, depending on who they go with. So this will be fascinating, but keep an eye on it. Oregon in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny. That's the important thing, so we'll see how things go.
And one quick thing, like this always happens. People talk about if they just do this. Well, we just saw what happens with the ifs. Teams fall off, and Oregon's got some tough road games ahead. The Ducks have only gone undefeated in the regular season in the Pac-12 one time. That was the Pac-10, actually. So, and we remember 2019, they stumbled against Arizona State. Like, you just never know what's going to happen. So the focus really still needs to be what Newman said, control your own destiny. It's about Oregon. They need to take care of business first.
All right, stick around when we come back. Dan Lanning to Auburn rumors, are they true? He quickly dashes those out. We'll let you know why when we come back on Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back to What's Cooking, brought to you by Sam's Northwest BBQ, located in Sherwood, just southwest of Portland. Your home for Yoder Smoker products and so much more. Make sure you check out Sam's Northwest BBQ. Dan Lanning, connected to Auburn possibly. I don't know about that. Let's hear from the head coach himself.
Yeah, first off, I'll say when things like this are going to come up when you have team success and when you do your job and things go the way they're supposed to go. That's credit really to our team. That being said, I think there's a little bit of a problem in society today with people looking for what's next and where there's an opportunity. And the reality is, the grass is not always greener. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene, right? And I want to be here in Eugene for as long as Eugene will have me. This place has everything that I could possibly ever want. My family could ever want. I've got an 11-year-old that's lived in 8 states. The last thing I ever want to do is leave. Right. So I want to enjoy this opportunity here. It's been a phenomenal place for us. And when you talk about things that align, things that match your vision for what you're looking for as a head coach, Oregon checks every box for me. Right. So when other people, I think history maybe shows that this is a great place to be and not a great place to leave. I want to be here. And hopefully that's the last time I have to really address it. But the reality is, this is a destination, not just for me, but for elite players. And why is it a destination? Because great administration, great fans, great support. And it's a good reason to be here and why we're having success that we're having.
All right, Aaron, Dan Lanning, interesting words. Your thoughts on Lanning saying that the grass is very green here at Oregon and having to shoot down these rumors?
Okay, I'm going to be delicate with my words here so people don't misconstrue what I'm saying. So first of all, I think it was absolutely wrong how people went after this reporter and just, marginalized him and just assumed he must not know what he's talking about because he's a fan. That's garbage. I've dealt with nonsense like that in the past where I've reported something and people told me I was crazy. And then, of course, it ends up being true. I don't believe for a second that this guy made this up. There's zero motivation for that. It's not like, I doubt it got a ton of clicks any more than any other article he wrote about the coaching situation there, that I believe they heard some things about discussions between Auburn and Lanning. The question is, what level were those discussions? What level of interest was there? I have zero doubt that there was probably at least a conversation between Auburn and Lanning's agent, and that there was like, yeah, let's talk about this. That doesn't mean he's leaving. That doesn't mean he's like is absolutely interested, but there could have been some interest. So give that guy a break. Disrespectful the way people have dealt with him. That's just garbage. And this is coming from another journalist. As far as Lanning goes, look, I don't think Lanning's taking this job, or I don't even think he's going to be offered this job. So I don't even think it's going to matter. Sort of like 2018 with Mario. Was Mario going to go to Miami? Well, they didn't offer him the job, so it didn't really matter. So I don't think anyone has to worry about that. That said, Lanning went to the classic playbook. I mean, he sounded no different than Chip Kelly, Willie Taggart, and Mario Cristobal. Let me go back real quick. Willie Taggart on December 2nd, 2017, tweeted how he was looking forward to practice and finding out what bowl game they were going to be in and who they were going to play in the bowl game. It's a beautiful day. Do something, right? 3 days later, he took the Florida State job. Mario Cristobal in 2017, when people were wondering, well, could you leave early too, said, you're going to have to drag me kicking and screaming away from Oregon to get me out of here. Was he kicking and screaming last year? No. He was on a sailboat in South. He was on a sailboat in South Beach, not kicking and screaming at all. And on top of that, the following year after the Miami thing, he sort of let it dangle out there that maybe he had kind of turned it down, because a lot of people assumed he turned down Miami, which was garbage. He contacted Miami. Miami said thanks, no thanks, and he didn't put that out there, of course not. But then he said again how much he loves it in Oregon, blah 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 blah. And as soon as Miami came calling, boom, he was out. So Lanning's smart. He knows what he's doing. He can't come out and say, oh, yeah, I had interest. I just talked to him. No big deal. Could you say that to your wife? Oh, yeah, that lady you saw me with, yeah, I was kicking the tires on that, see if she wanted to hook up, but no, I didn't. It fell through. No, you can't do that. You can't do that in a job like this either. Here's one other thing. Why does his buyout decrease every year? Why does it go from 14 to 10 to 7, I think to 3 or 4? Why? Why do you structure it that way? So you can get out if you want to. That's why. So everything Dan Lanning said was great. I believe him today, but to me, when a legitimately good-looking job comes open, he's out.
All right. Well, football and marital advice, courtesy Aaron Fentress. All right, that'll do it. Stick around when we come back. We'll wrap up this edition of Talkin Ducks and take a deeper dive into the matchup against the Huskies at Autzen Stadium this weekend. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Well, many people call it rivalry week, hate week if you even want to go that strong, but it's Washington at Oregon. Both teams ranked in the top 25. It's been a while since we've been able to say that between these two teams lining up here, Aaron. And what's your threat level for Washington coming in, led by Michael Penix Jr.? They lead the NCAA in passing yards per game at over 370. They are not shy about airing it out. They're coming into Autzen Stadium. They're going to be confident and hungry. They want to play spoiler. So what do you think about this matchup?
Hold on, I had to text my wife and tell her that was just an analogy. It was just, it's all good. It's all good.
I don't think she's worried about your game, Aaron.
Ooh, damn. All right, anyway, enough of that. Let's move on before I get myself in trouble. Listen, okay, this is clearly a threat because Oregon does not generate a ton of pressure, 15 sacks on the season. Their secondary can be had here and there. They really haven't faced really strong competition. I think the combined record of the teams they've played in the conference other than UCLA within the conference is 5-25, something like that. So you're going up against a legitimate team that has some good wins and is led by a dynamic passing game. I think they're going to get their yards. I think they might throw for 350, but what you want to make sure you do is make sure they're crawling to come back yards. Like they're yards where they're just padding stats. It's on 50 attempts. They're behind the entire time. Not their front runner yards where they're just gashing you and they're extending their lead and you're keeping your defense on its heels. That's what you want to avoid. And Washington's very iffy. Like they lost to Arizona State, but they put up the passing yards, right? So you have to be leery of that. And one other thing that I think is scary in this game is that I don't think Washington's the type of team where they're going to be easily made to go away. Because when you're that explosive in the passing game, you can come back really quickly. So yes, this is definitely a scary game for Oregon.
All right, Oregon 13.5-point favorites. Let's go ahead and get to our rock-solid pick brought to you by Milan Stoneworks, bringing you the finest stone products in the Northwest. And you look at this one, Aaron, and how do you think it shakes out? Because for me, I'll start with my score prediction. I think Oregon still runs away with this one by 2 scores. I think this ends up being a 45-31, 45-28 type game even. I think Washington's going to struggle to stop Oregon's very diverse and dynamic offense. But I'm with you. The Huskies are going to push the ball down the field, and that'll put some pressure on Oregon. And really, the key to this one, it feels like, is can Oregon play terrific one-on-one defense on these receivers and keep the Huskies from the big explosion plays? If they have to work and have these 10, 12, 13-play drives, okay, give them the credit. But you can't have 2-minute drives, 3-minute drives with a 45, 50-yard completion that just allows the Huskies to quickly eat up some yards and then force the Huskies to convert in the red zone. Don't give them long touchdown passes. Make them work for it when that field starts to get a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I think you could be right. The thing I don't really buy with Washington is, are they going to slow down Oregon's offense? You know, I mean, they gave up 45 to Arizona State, 39 to Arizona, 40 to UCLA. So I feel like a 40 number is coming for Oregon. There's no reason for me to believe that Washington's really going to slow them down. The one thing that should give people pause, though, is that Washington has 26 sacks on the season. So they do apply pressure. Is this a game where Bo Nix does get pressured, maybe gets sacked a couple times? If that happens, that could change the complexion of the game. I just don't believe it's going to happen enough to give Washington a chance to win it. I do think it's going to be relatively closer, though. I'm going to say 38-30. I originally was at 38-34, but I'm going to go 38-30 right now because I do think Oregon is a superior team and they are at home.
A top 25 matchup between Oregon and Washington in November. High stakes. Oregon's still trying to stay alive in the college football playoff. A lot going on here. That'll do it for this edition of Talkin Ducks, an abbreviated version. But Aaron,
I thought I had another half hour. Wait, you said an hour.
Listen, that's
all. You cut me short.
That's all we can really pay you for, man. I'm sorry. So we'll catch up next week with Joey and Anthony when they're back in town. But thanks again for joining us. Enjoy the game. We'll recap it next week.